Hi, I'm Elizabeth Campbell, and this is a brief discussion about one of the most famous streets in Boise, and that is Harrison Boulevard. Now, Harrison Boulevard is in what we call the historic district of Boise's very famous North End. Why is the North End famous? Well, because A, a lot of famous people have lived there and built homes there over the years, and B, it is one of the most popular streets, and the North End is the most popular area in the Boise area as well. So why is it popular? So just a brief overview of that is A, it's incredibly walkable to downtown Boise, walkable, drivable, wheelchairable, any kind of thing that you want to do to get downtown. It's very close, and that makes a big difference for anyone, everyone, and even pets. So that's one of the proximity issues and benefits of being in the North End. It is also beautiful. There's an entire arbor department in Boise that takes care of all of our trees, and the North End has a huge catalog of not only beautiful trees, but historic trees, trees of historical significance. And they're actually tagged, and you can see them. They have a metal tag on them, and they're cataloged. So that's super cool. It's also very popular because the architecture over the years, over the last 130 years, has gone through the eras and been preserved. So we have everything from Queen Anne, Victorian, there's mid-century modern, Art Deco, Prairie style, the Greek revival, there's the cottage, the craftsman cottage. So there's so many beautiful homes that it is really a treasure in Idaho. It's a very popular. Even people in northern Idaho know about Boise's North End. So those are some really, really cool things about the North End. And just to give you a few things about Harrison Boulevard and some of the really cool popular addresses, I'm gonna do like a voiceover, but kind of give you some photos of some of the houses that are just so cool and so amazing. Let's take a look at some of these very cool, iconic homes and who may or may not have lived there. So we start at the 900 block, and 900 Harrison Boulevard was built in 1905, and it's the Emulus Wallace House. So super famous house. 901 was built in 912, and it's the R.S. Shaw House. In number 906 is a colonial revival. We have a photo of that here, and that is a beautiful colonial revival. 907 Harrison Boulevard was built in 1911. It was the C.A. Carter House, the Wayland and Fennel, and it is also a colonial revival home. 912 was the Harry Morrison House, and Morrison Knudsen were engineers and pretty much built a lot of Boise and Idaho. 915 was built in 910, and that's the T.K. Little House, and then Nisbet and Paradise. 912 was built in 1921, and it's the S.E. Brookover House. And let's go to the 1000 block. 1002 Harrison Boulevard was built in 1925. It's the Walter DeFresney House, and it is a Tudor revival. 1005 was built in 1910, 1009, 1909. Here's a really cool house, 1017 Harrison Boulevard was built in 1909, and that's the Francis Sanders House. 1020 was built in 1936, and that's the J.C. Jordan House. 1021 was built in 1909, and that was the Manford Coffin House, and built by Tortolet and Company, and that is a beautiful bungalow. And if we go northwest of Sherman on Harrison Boulevard, Let's kind of skip through, too many, but some that are notably famous is the Arthur Stevens House, which is 1106 Harrison Boulevard, built in 1929. That is a classic bungalow. Let's see. A colonial revival was the Harry J. Bingham House, built in 1923. That's at 1112 Harrison Boulevard. 1200 block. The Pearl Hastings House was built in 1932. That's at 1206 Harrison Boulevard. Skip some of those others. Here's a Queen Anne, 1304 Harrison Boulevard, was built in 1901, and it was called the John Meyer House, and that is a Queen Anne. Beautiful. You can see those rounded corners. So beautiful. Another Queen Anne is 1305 Harrison Boulevard, built in 1905. It was called the Eugene Looney House. Not sure if it was called the Looney Bin or not, but that was built by Tortolet and Company. And it is a Queen Anne as well. If we go to the 1400 block, let's keep with some kind of new homes. The Arthur Golden House is a colonial revival. That's 1403 Harrison Boulevard. Tortolet and Hummel built 1505 Harrison Boulevard in 1911. It was called the G.W. Bond House. Robert Norris was famous, so his home was built, his address was 1519, built in 1907. North of West Lemp Street is the W.E. Leitner House, built in 1602, or 1602 Harrison Boulevard, built in 1910. The Mary Nutt House, address is 1620, built in 1910. Let's see, 1700 Harrison Boulevard. It was built in 1937, and it's a Tudor revival as well. An Ira E. High House at 1701 across the street, built in 1923. That is a classic bungalow. And then 1707 was H.K. Fritchman's house, second house, and it's a bungalow as well. And then here's a very interesting home, 1717 Harrison Boulevard, built in 1936. That is the modern house, built for Claude R. High House. And then north of West Hazel, 1800 is a classic bungalow built in 1921. And another bungalow is at 1812, built in 1919 it's called the E.C. Doughlin House, and that's a classic bungalow, as well as the one next door at 1820, built in 1921, a couple years later, and that is a bungalow. In the 1900 block, there are 6 bungalows in a row: 1920, 1916, 1916, 1909, 1922, and 1911. But the addresses are 1901, 1903, 1907, 1911, 1910, and 1912. And then 1919 is also a bungalow built for J.R. Courtney. And then 1920 is a Tudor revival. So here's a little oddball out. So if we go to the 2000 block, the B.J. Bradley House, that's my maiden name, is a bungalow as well. That's at 2001, built in 1921. And in 2009 Harrison Boulevard, built in 1910, Omar W. Allen House is also a bungalow. Charles Spinner is famous, so his house was built at 2014 Harrison Boulevard in 1914. And then the next door house is a bungalow, and that's at 2016, built in 1910. Another Queen Anne house at 2026 Harrison Boulevard, built in 1910. Seems to be that Queen Anne era. If we go northwest of Dewey, there's a bungalow, 4 bungalows on that street. 2106 Harrison Boulevard, built in 1909, was the Joseph and Mary Rose House. And then next to that, Ezekiel Sweet House is a bungalow. And then Thomas Hamilton House was built at 2111 Harrison Boulevard. And then 2114 is a bungalow as well. If we go northwest of Dora, We have more homes here, cottages, as well as early Victorian. The Byron J. Wilson House at 2200, built in 1910. The John Cornell House, built in 1940 at 2203. That's Tudor Revival. And then 2206, built in 1903, is the John B. Archibald House. North 15th Street. Oh, so that ends the most famous homes of Harrison Boulevard. If you want more information about Boise's North End, don't forget to like and subscribe and DM me for a private tour. We do tours of the North End and Boise proper, and then also of the entire Treasure Valley. We also have extensive knowledge about how to do a market analysis. What's the difference between basement square footage and above square footage? What's the difference between a single level and a two-story? Obviously we know about the homes and structures and quality of homes. So it's really important when you take a look at the North End that it is a unique animal. Sometimes I get a call from an appraiser because he's not quite sure about the home and how to appraise it. So there are a lot of varied homes. Some of the homes we didn't talk about is the ranch or even, a modified ranch. We didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about mid-century modern. There are also some mid-century modern homes built as infill in the North End, and then those great cottages. And the mid-century modern era was actually not as short as you would think. We moved from that Art Deco down right into that mid-century modern, and there was a little bit of kind of drip over, if you could say. The lines became blurred, and then the homes started to look very much like a mid-century modern. So the classic ranch versus a rambler is something that people always ask me about. We're going to go through that next week or in the next video, and hopefully we'll have a really comprehensive explanation of the North End and all the really cool homes. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, don't forget to like and subscribe. And then if you want more videos or if you want more information, you can go to our webpage and like us on Instagram and Facebook as well. And I hope you be safe, be happy, and be home.